decades that we're turning back the clock can occur very, very quickly.
Don't wish you'd done it when you were younger. Wish you're doing it tomorrow. Go out and do it tomorrow. Be a part of this. This is the movement that's literally going to improve the quality of your life.
And so let's fight the aging process with this information and taking action on it. Welcome to the Strength Changes Everything podcast, where we introduce you to the information, latest research, and tools that will enable you to live a strong, healthy life. On this podcast, we will also answer your questions about strength, health, and well-being. I'm Amy Hudson. I own and operate 3 exercise coach studios. My co-hosts are Brian Cygan, co-founder and CEO of The Exercise Coach, and Dr. James Fisher, leading researcher in evidence-based strength training. And now for today's episode. Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you back to the Strength Changes Everything podcast. We are so excited to be back with you today, launching season 2 of the Strength Changes Everything podcast. Season 1, if you've been with us in the past, we had a great response to all of the episodes that we put out. We've had listeners reach out and tell us how much those them, fueled their fire for their workouts, inspired them to take things more seriously with their strength and with their health, which is what this podcast is all about. Today, I'm joined by 2 co-hosts. We have Brian Cygan and we have Dr. James Fisher with me today. So Brian, how are you and how have you been since season 1?
Doing great, Amy. Good to see you again. Good to see you, James. Excited to be back, as you say, kind of by popular demand. The podcast was such a hit season 1, and we hung in there for quite a while and got a lot of episodes in, and we got pretty busy. We've been up to quite a bit in the past, several months, really throughout 2024. And I'm looking forward to launching again and really committing to a good rhythm here at the end of the year and in 2025. We at the Exercise Coach have continued to grow. So what we're going to be talking about on this podcast is also in great demand. More than ever, people are conscious of their need to get healthier. More than ever, people are desirous of feeling confident that they're doing what they need to do for their personal health and personal longevity. And so we're here to help, Amy.
And if we haven't mentioned this yet, we are also on YouTube. So if you're listening to our voices, you can actually find us on YouTube now, and the link will be in the show notes. So you can see our faces as we have this conversation. Well, we are also super excited to introduce you guys to a new co-host that we have joining us on our show, which is Dr. James Fisher. So welcome, Dr. James Fisher, to the Strength Changes Everything podcast. Can you give us a little introduction of yourself?
Thank you, Amy. First of all, it's fantastic to be on the podcast again. Obviously, I was a guest on it in previous episodes, and now to be here co-hosting with you guys is a real pleasure and privilege for me. So the background about me, 18 years as a university lecturer and a researcher, and I've been prized away from academia to come and work for the Exercise Coach, and a part of that role is going to be co-hosting this podcast with you guys.
For me, this is like having a superhero on the podcast with us in a way, guys. It's, if you think about, if I look back at our careers and where we started and who's been really influential over the years, if we go back far enough, I think about people like Matt Brisky, Doug McGuff, and others. But along the way, maybe not at the very beginning of my career, but a number of years into my career, another name came on the scene, and that was Dr. James Fisher. And he started to put out research about evidence-based strength training that supported and defended what we were doing with strength training. And so he was just a huge help to those of us who were out in the field making a difference every day through strength training when he came on the scene and started to call it evidence-based training and start to assemble all the science that was really supportive of what we were doing. And maybe before we go forward and talk about the relaunch of the podcast and what that's going to look like, maybe we could share just a little bit about the purpose of the podcast, just to kind of remind people what it is that we're all about at the the Strength Changes Everything podcast. I've got my t-shirt on here, the Strength Changes Everything podcast. And it's really in line with our purpose at the Exercise Coach. The Exercise Coach is the fitness franchise that we operate with more than 200 locations across the country that my wife and I, Jerry Ann, founded 20 plus years ago. And like I said, we've got more than 200 studios across the country. And our purpose at the Exercise Coach really is to transform the way people age. That's what we're all about. That's what we've been about for more than 20 years. And we got really excited many years ago about the way that we were helping people transform the way they age through a unique methodology. A methodology based on what we call our point of view at the Exercise Coach and at the Strength Changes Everything podcast in terms of the time that they have to invest, the risk that they have to take, the pillars that our approach is based on are safety, effectiveness, and efficiency. And what we call optimized exercise is exercise that simultaneously maximizes safety and maximizes effectiveness while actually also maximizing efficiency or minimizing the time it takes for people to get the results that matter most to them. So that's just a little bit of a review of our purpose and our point of view and the pillars that guide everything that we do in our research and in our work at the Exercise Coach. And again, Amy and I are so happy to have you join us, James.
Thank you. And I think that's a brilliant segue into me talking maybe a bit about my role with the Exercise Coach. A big part of it is going to be conducting some research with you guys and maybe developing equipment and so forth. And I think it's really important to remember that as an academic in a lab producing research, a lot of the testing that's done is a test of efficacy. Does something work or does something make a difference? And as you talked about evidence-based training, that's obviously a key part of it. But a big part of research is also effectiveness. And that's how do things work in the real world? What's the ecological validity? How does it actually translate to real people doing real workouts? And that, of course, is going to be a big part of my role with the Exercise Coach, where I can hopefully start to do some research with maybe some of you guys as listeners, as clients of the Exercise Coach.
That's cool. And in terms of connecting with real people in the real world, it just reminds me of Amy's purpose or part of Amy's purpose on this podcast. And that's going to be to always bring me and Dr. Fisher sort of back down to ground level to make sure that we're connecting well with the real people who are the listeners of this podcast. So make sure you keep us in check, Amy, keep James in check and make sure that you force us to make things understandable and really, relatable and practical for our listeners.
I will not be able to help myself when I hear research, when I hear teachings, when I hear learnings. I won't be able to help myself, but digest it in real time and give listeners those tidbits and those kind of like those one-liners, right? Of like, what does this mean for me? And what is my takeaway from this as a regular person trying to live my healthiest life? So I can do that.
Keep asking those questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So since season 1, Brian, let us know, what have you been up to? I'm just curious, personally, just getting to know each of us here as your hosts. What have you been up to since season 1?
Yeah, good question. I guess if I think about it in the categories of personally and professionally, this year, Jerry Ann and I and the family actually moved. We moved to Tennessee. So I'm sitting here, not that you can see it, but we're sitting here in the beautiful hills of Tennessee and thoroughly enjoying it. Right now, as we record, we're it's Halloween and we're about to get into November and we're sitting here in the mid 70s and looks like the outlook for the next couple of weeks. So right now we're feeling pretty good about the decision. And professionally, as I said, just really been focused on continuing to grow the Exercise Coach brand across the country. And really just to prepare us in every way possible for the future. We've been at this now for about 24 years. And I am more excited than ever about the unique value that we create for people. The unique opportunity that we have to make a difference and to build people up It's still revolutionary to this day when people hear 20 minutes, 20 minutes twice a week, strength training, that can change my entire body. That can just deliver life-changing results. And so even after 20 years, it's still surprising and exciting to people who hear the message. And so there are just millions of people out there that we continue to try to bring that message to. We're making progress. But as I said, we're doing our best to grow across the country and to really prepare for the long haul of the future. And just so grateful that we've been able to do this as long as we have, and so grateful that our outlook is so great and that we plan to be doing this for a very, very long time.
That is so awesome. And as a segue, I mean, I'm one of those franchisees. So since we actually launched season 1 of the Strength Changes Everything podcast, I now have a third location, which is great. So we have 3 exercise coach studios that we own and operate in the Twin Cities. We are super proud of the service we deliver, the level of quality that we are able to give to clients to really change their lives significantly. Every single day we hear from clients about how this workout has improved their quality of life. And that has ripple effects, not only to the client themselves, but those families, their community. And that is what fuels my fire for what we do every day. I also love to develop team members as well. Our coaching team is the hands and feet of our brand. And so this podcast and whatever professional development that we engage in together really does equip our teams to be the leaders in this area, the future of fitness, which is what we're delivering every day. And the Strength Changes Everything philosophy undergirds it all. So, personally, I've got 3 daughters. I'm in my 40s. I am gung-ho about strength training because entering perimenopause soon and menopause, I know a lot of listeners are in the same boat. Strength training is the number one thing you can do. And we have to prioritize muscle. So this is my jam, for lack of a better word, right? So I'm so excited to get back into this podcast because I personally learn and grow every time we do an episode. Knowledge is power. So that is my thing. So that's what I've been up to.
Thanks, Amy.
Yeah. How about you, Dr. James?
Sammy. Yeah. So
we're gonna call James like 17 things on this podcast. Get used to it, James.
Yeah, that's not a problem. Not a problem. As long as they're all okay to go out live on go on YouTube.
There you go.
Hey, the biggest change for me right now is 18 years in academia to now be in an industry and knowing that I can reach straight out to the people who strength training means the most to, the people within your studio. So working in industry with an organization like the Exercise Coach is just a phenomenal opportunity for me. It's going to be a big change from teaching undergrad, postgraduate classes and supervising doctoral students. But I'm excited that I'll retain the research part of it with you guys and still be able to deliver that information to the people that need it. Personally, I have a son. He's 7 years old. He's just the light of my life. He's just a wonder every day. And when we talk about strength training and the importance of it, it's probably worth highlighting. A year or so back, I blew up my knee playing basketball, tore my ACL, MCL, meniscus. So strength training was a big part of my life beforehand, and it's been a big part of my life in rehabbing. And maintaining good quality of life and strength as I age now. So I'm moving into my later 40s. Just enjoying training and enjoying life in general, and looking forward to the next opportunities that come up.
Awesome. Thank you so much for giving us a recap, everybody, of where we've been and where we're going. Let's talk actually about where we're going in season 2. We are super excited to go over some of the types of episodes that we're going to be delivering this season in a weekly format. We have a few different types of episodes to expect. So let's go through quickly what those are. Dr. Fisher, can you start us off?
Yeah, absolutely. So First of all, it was a phenomenal season one. There were some great discussions. One of the things that we want to bring into season two is more guest speakers. So we've just got some of the greatest academics and fantastic guests lined up. Dr. Wayne Westcott, who I think was one of the first people to coin the phrase strength training as medicine. Dr. Lauren Colenso Semple, who's going to talk about hormones and in females and strength training and how it can impact hormones through menopause and so forth. And Dr. Doug McGough, who of course literally most recently wrote the book on strength training, Body by Science, which many people will be familiar with. They're all guests that we've got lined up to talk on the podcast.
Excellent. All right. And then a second type of episode is Brian's going to introduce. What else?
Sure. So in addition to interviews, we're going to be doing episodes kind of like the episodes in season one that are topical in nature, where we're going to be taking a question that our listeners have asked or a topic or a principle that we've just deemed really important to dive more deeply into. And that's exactly what we'll do. We'll camp out on that topic and we'll try to share, why it's so important for us to address this topic and for people to understand it. And we'll go deep and try to help people understand it just as fully as possible.
There were so many great topics, but one of the key things that came around from season one is something that Amy's going to tell us about now. So, Amy, tell us what one of the other types of podcasts we're going to produce is.
Yes, so I'm super excited. We are going to be doing Q&A episodes, and our listeners have given us so much feedback about the content that we produced and how certain topics have really helped them, like I mentioned before. And many times they'll ask, hey, can you do a podcast on this? I had this question. Coaches and studios will say, hey, our clients want to know about this, or clients will directly say, I want to learn a little bit more about this. This is something I really care about. And so we are excited to do Q&A podcasts. We're going to have the opportunity for you to submit questions to us. We will share the steps to take to do that. And you're going to be able to submit a question to us. And then each month, we're going to do a Q&A podcast where we're going to cover as many of those as we can, answering those questions. Here's how an expert would answer that. And so if you've been thinking about topics that you care about that have come up or sparked your interest over time or listening to previous podcasts, please submit those to us because we would love to address the topics that you're interested in about strength, about health, or whatever may be on your mind. So super excited for that.
I think it'll be really cool, Amy, too, for us to do those episodes with the three of us bringing just different perspectives. These questions are just great questions. And some of them, really, we will be doing whole episodes on. And so it can be a little challenging, actually, to answer a question succinctly. But we want to get through lots of questions, right? We want people to feel like when they submit questions, we're going to get to that question in an upcoming episode. Not that they're submitting a question and maybe 5 years from now, we're going to answer that question. It was said once, if I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter. And so when it comes to answering some of these great questions that people ask, it is really challenging to try to kind of prioritize how it is that I'm going to address this in 30 seconds, and so it'll be great for us to be able to help each other do that and to bring the varied perspectives that we do.
I am so excited for both of your expertise to be delivered straight to people's ears about these questions. It is really, really awesome to have this direct line of communication open. So yeah, I am so excited about this.
I think it's a great opportunity for the listeners to be a part of this podcast. Mm-hmm. I've seen the list of questions from season one and they're phenomenal. So I'm excited to answer them. But I'm also excited for people to subscribe and then send in more questions and to continue that theme where the listener can really guide the way the podcast goes.
Me too. And then one final episode style we're going to be delivering to you are research article-based episodes. So Brian, could you share a little bit about what we have in mind for that?
Sure. What we do at the Exercise Coach is a science-backed approach to strength training, or as James years ago started to talk about evidence-based strength training. There is a ton of research that supports our approach at the Exercise Coach, or that supports our claim and our promise that strength changes everything. There's also all kinds of research that is sort of adjacent to our purpose or our methodology that just helps us better understand the way the body works and muscle physiology and the importance of muscle and how this tissue actually talks to and helps and promotes health throughout the rest of the body. But it's not exactly super accessible to the average person to go out and comb the research and to categorize and organize it and understand it and apply it. And that's what we're going to be asking James to help us do. And so, James, what would you have to say about these episodes where we're going to be maybe taking a recent research article or hot research topic and breaking it down for people?
My goodness, I'm so excited to do this part of the podcast. A lot of the time as an academic and as a researcher, we fear that our research is only read by other researchers and by other academics and other scientists. And the reality is that the people it means the most to are the people listening to this podcast and the clients of the Exercise Coach. And so I'm just so excited to be able to bring that scientist approach to research and then deliver it to the lay population in a voice that hopefully they can understand and that's palatable to them, to reuse and repeat to their family and their friends and the people that matter most. So, and of course the coaches as well. So the coaches, the Exercise Coach are big on kind of personal progression and evidence-based practice, as you said. So they're sort of continued learning because they're constantly fielding questions by clients. So it's just a growth opportunity for everybody listening.
That's a great point. It's one of the things that we love about this podcast. I mean, there are sort of several audiences here. We've got clients at the Exercise Coach who are engaged in strength training, who just want to understand better and be motivated by the science that supports what their efforts are going into. We've got people considering trying the Exercise Coach that want to understand where we're coming. And then we've just got health seekers out there that understand the importance of strength training and just want a great resource to help them better understand and be energized to engage in strength training. And our coaches across the country and even those business owners that bring the Exercise Coach to markets across the country. We view this podcast as a great opportunity to be continuing to pour into them and to mentor them sort of on a large scale as they hear James and Amy and myself talk to issues that matter to the people that we serve. James, I was thinking yesterday about your research, and some of the articles that we'll break down will most likely be articles that you've authored or co-authored. Some will be articles by colleagues or peers of yours in the research space. But I was wondering, what was actually the first? I was trying to think of the first article that you published that I would have come across years ago and when that was. Do you know what that probably was and when it was published?
So it was published in early 2011. It was a paper titled Evidence-Based Resistance Training Recommendations. And it was a product that was myself and three co-authors, Dr. James Steele, Dr. Stuart Bruce Lowe, and Dr. Dave Smith, some great mentors and friends of mine. And it was a product of a number of years' work to really review the academic literature around strength and strength training and provide really sort of evidence-based recommendations on how somebody can go about engaging in strength training. And there's a certain naivety to that paper, actually, because my whole aim was that should be deliverable to the population. But of course, it's then published in a peer-reviewed journal where it's effectively hidden away and only read by other scientists. Until it's read by people like yourself. And then you kind of get a hold of it and go, hey, this is exactly what we're doing, or this is how we can tweak our workouts and so forth. So, but that was probably the first one that set the ball rolling. It was probably started in about 2009. There's a big piece of work that
Well, we were sure excited to read it then, and it's a classic to go back and review now. We've been using it and doing the work we do, delivering millions of evidence-based strength training sessions per year, all built to a large degree on the very same principles that you enumerated and elaborated on in that article back in 2011. And our work had been going on for a decade prior to that without an article like that. And so we were really, really thankful when it first published in 2011.
It is so cool because as you guys are talking, I'm thinking about here's what the science says, and here's how we are applying it with real human beings who can experience the benefits of what the science is saying and then reap those other benefits from it. It's so cool. So it's making that connection from research and data to real human beings. And that is what it's all about. Absolutely.
Yeah. And honestly, I think a part of our long-term vision for the Strength Changes Everything podcast and in our efforts at the Exercise Coach is really to position strength training in public awareness where it should be as the key longevity technology or modality or practice, really in the maintenance, the preservation, the optimization of human health and performance and longevity. We've been at this for more than 2 decades, and there were people that went before us who started to take up this cause decades ago. And I've gotten to watch the researchers come onto the scene, the scientists, the medical doctors, the voices within the medical community who over the years have gotten more and more on board with strength training being as Dr. Wayne Westcott originally said, the kind of the most important physical medicine that there is for reversing the aging process and for helping people live the healthiest, happiest lives possible. But we've still got so much work to do. When you look at participation in strength training across the lifespan and the people who are engaged with it, there are so many more. There's so much more awareness today. If you just study the research articles published, there's almost an exponential interest that started taking place about a decade ago in terms like sarcopenia, the age-related loss of skeletal muscle, or myokines, which are the hormone-like substances that muscles release, or just strength training in general. It's been exponential. And yet, if we look at participation and awareness across the country, we know there's millions of people that need exactly this to address what ails them in the aging process, to address their desire to have the most hopeful outlook for their personal future. And so we've been at it for many years, and I think we'll be at it for many more. But I really think that in the coming years, in the few coming years ahead of us, I think that we will do our part and others will do their part to position strength training in the minds of people as really a must-have rather than kind of a nice-to-have.
I think you're absolutely right, Brian. And I think it's, strength training for me is probably the most important single thing that we can do for our health and our quality of life and longevity as we age. In one of my papers back in 2017, I said that one of our desires is to have a biological age equal to or less than our chronological age. So I'm 46 as I sit here today, but I want to function like I'm a 25-year-old, but I'd happily take a 35-year-old. So if my body can function like a 35-year-old, if I can be as strong or as fit, if I can have the hormone levels and the muscle strength and tendon strength and ligament strength, and my organs be functioning and my brain, and like you talked about myokines and my body composition and everything else, then really that's our goal. That's our goal in life. That's just the goal of people in strength training. Nobody wants to be old. They don't want to have an old life. They want to have a young life for as long as they can. And I think that's key, whether people are a client of the Exercise Coach right now or a future client. Anybody engaging in strength training is literally the elixir to your health and well-being.
I feel like you guys are putting the pressure on me to share you guys keep talking about your age like it's nothing.
I didn't give my specific age. Are we giving our ages?
James has.
Yep. How old are you, Brian?
Put me on the spot. I am 50 going on 51. And, and to the point that James is making, not just me, but so many of our clients, thousands and thousands of clients across the country feel and can do things, that are simply commensurate with what a much younger person feels and can do. At 50 years old, I am as strong and as healthy as I was at any age I can remember, whether it's 35 or, like you said, James, 25. To be able to go out and hike and jump and run and lift things and just feel good, is something I never want to take for granted. I don't think that we will, because of our focus and, what we see occur as a result of what we call the usual aging process, which we'll talk a lot more about on the podcast. We have, and we will more. But what we're talking about here, what James has said, is not something that is some pipe dream. It's not something that's just possible. It is eminently, absolutely probable or certain that if someone engages in rational, evidence-based strength training, they can live a life that is youthful and enjoyable and hopeful, and turn the clock back and really do things, Amy, like you see our clients do in their 60s and their 70s, that much, much younger people, might even be envious of.
Absolutely. Yep. And I just turned 44. Okay.
Nice.
So I'm outing myself. But you know what? Wouldn't we all like to feel and function, feel and function a decade younger than we really are? Yes, we all would, right? The answer is yes. And strength training is one of the best ways to do that. And so let's fight the aging process with this information and taking action on it. That is what we're all about, right?
But do you think, Amy, people hear that and they think that that's, too good to be true or something? I mean, I hear that and I go, a decade based on the type of science that exists, based on our data and what we see happen for people. I hear that and I go, well, let's not sell people short. I mean, people can feel and operate like they're multiple decades younger as a result of strength. But do you think someone even hearing that they could basically turn back the clock by a decade sounds almost too good to be true?
Absolutely. I think a lot of us just expect decline as we get older, and there's nothing we can do about it. I'm just getting older. That's just how it goes. But understanding the secret of how much muscle really relates to that fountain of youth is the aha moment that a lot of people don't know, right? Is that by restoring lost muscle mass, we are able to physically function and operate and have the strength of somebody 10 or 20 years younger than us. And that really changes everything else about how our physiology works. I don't think a lot of people realize that is possible. And I don't think a lot of people realize how quickly that is possible either.
Great point.
My goodness. And this is not something that you have to engage in your 20s or 30s or 40s or 50s. This is something, there's a paper that came out recently, and this is the first chance for me to be that scientist that says, hey, there's a paper that came out where they talked about engaging in strength training post-retirement age. So this is guys in their mid to late 60s. And they said that within a few months of engaging in strength training, their health and their well-being and their quality of life had improved drastically, so drastically that it preceded their quality of life a much younger age. So they literally had reversed the aging process. This is not something, if you're listening to this and you're sat there in your 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s, and you're thinking, well, I wish I'd done that when I was younger. Don't wish you'd done it when you were younger. wish you're doing it tomorrow. Go out and do it tomorrow. Be a part of this. This is the movement that's literally going to improve the quality of your life.
So awesome. Pretty exciting stuff. Well, I would like to hear rapid fire. What are you both most excited about for season 2?
I'm going to go first. I'm going to say I've seen the list of questions that we got from season 1, and I'm excited to get into those. And then I'm excited to get into the listener questions. This is the academic in me where I'm stood in front of a classroom and I field questions from students. And I love the idea of being challenged, of going away and finding information for people and being able to relay information that people want. Because I could talk all day about things that I think people should want to hear. But what I actually want to know is what do they want to hear? I want to hear their questions.
I mean, first of all, I am so excited and so grateful that I'm able to sort of hand the baton a little bit to you and James. And I will participate in a number of these podcasts, over time, especially the Q&A, maybe with some of the guests. But with everything on my plate and all we're trying to do to spread strength and health throughout the world, it's a challenge for me to be on this podcast as consistently as we want to be. And we've committed, I'm super excited about the frequency, the rhythm we've committed to, and the plan that we have to bring this podcast to our listeners once a week. And that is something that is only possible with the investment that you are both making in this. And so I'm just thrilled to know that the podcast is going to go forward in strength, and that we are committed to that once a week frequency, and that you guys are going to get it done. And then also just hearing James and you, Amy, just continually make that connection between strength and health through new research and the discussion of different topics. It's just something that I'm really excited to hear about, just that strength and health connection. I think in 2025, it'll be neat for me and James to start to bring some of our particular findings at the Exercise Coach through the strength training technology that we utilize. Because it's really exciting. Some of the things something you said, Amy, you mentioned just how quickly this turning back the clock can happen. And that is something that we're seeing, proven through this very rich, data rich offering across the country that we make available to people. We're seeing and proving that the changes can occur, the reversal of the usual aging process in the decades that we're turning back the clock can occur very, very quickly. And I'd love in 2025 to be able to bring some more specificity to that and some more data. Also hopeful that Dr. Fisher can get some data actually out there and published and available to other academics to interact with. And then maybe even in 2025, I'll have the opportunity to come on and share some of the R&D that we've been doing the last year and are doing related just to innovation. And I mean, strength is the foundation and the core of what we do at the Exercise Coach. And we continue to listen to our clients, share with us their needs, their perceived needs, and we're working on innovation that will allow for us to build on that foundation and bring maybe even next level service, next level modalities to the table for our clients in 2025.
Awesome. Very cool. And yeah, what I'm most excited about for this next season is really what I'm going to call the marriage of research, science, and data and human action. We want to keep our finger on the pulse of the latest research and science and make that actionable for all of our listeners. And we're also keeping our pulse on what you care about as listeners as well. And so we're going to speak to that. And we want to be a one-stop shop where you can understand the information that's going to be the most crucial for you to make the best choices for your own health moving forward, right? And learn something new as well, right? It's one thing to listen to stuff I already know about and reinforce what I already know and believe. And it's also awesome to continue learning and exposing yourself to new content that's really going to fuel your fire. So that is really what I'm the most excited about for this season, keeping our pulse on what the listeners care about and also what the latest research shows, and bringing that to you. So awesome. Very exciting. Well, we are going to wrap up today's episode here. This is season 2. Welcome. Buckle up. We are so excited for the ride. Now, if you are watching us on YouTube, like I said before, we are on YouTube. Our faces are on YouTube now. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to this podcast channel. If you're going to be listening to our podcast on YouTube so you don't miss a future episode. If you're listening to this podcast on your audio platform, make sure you follow the show. That way, when we release the next episode, you'll see it right there. We are so excited to be with you. We will be back with you next week. Remember, strength changes everything.